I was sent a couple of gaming products for review. This Elitist S game controller for Nintendo Switch, and this R100 USB wireless adapter. This video will cover the controller, but you can find the review for the adapter by clicking the card or link in the description. Please know that I did receive these products for free from BigBig One in return for coverage, but they had no control over the content of the final videos. I always endeavor to give both an accurate account of what I find while testing, and also enough information so that you can make your own informed decisions. I'm not shy about admitting that I have a bias towards official first-party hardware, so that's what I compare any third-party offering to. The primary function of the Elitist S is to be a suitable substitute for Nintendo's Switch Pro controller, but with more functionality and at a better price. It also has some extra compatibilities that we'll test. Be aware that this controller is not licensed by Nintendo. First impressions are good. I like the art design on the controller's face. It comes with a cable for charging, and a USB dongle for wireless connection to other devices. Putting it in my hands for the first time, it feels, well, pretty normal. It's comfortable and feels like any decent controller really. It is somewhat substantial and with a subtly rubberized coating on its face that feels good to the touch. I can feel the two extra paddle buttons situated on the back. These buttons are assignable, I'll explain that later. The back plate is removable. I was hoping to find a replaceable battery pack in here, but no such luck. The design of these paddles reminds me of another controller, just a moment. The Steam controller has rear paddles designed in a very similar manner, so at least I have a little experience using buttons like these. You can see how closely they've matched the official Nintendo Pro controller. It's the same basic size and the same design. The triggers have some slight differences, but you can see they have a lot in common. The face buttons are in the same squash diamond pattern. If I overlay the images, you can see just how similar the two controllers are. The main difference is that the plus and minus and the home and capture buttons have functionally swapped positions. Or perhaps more accurately, home and capture have been moved towards the top. As I'm more used to the Pro controller, this took a small amount of time for me to adjust to. The manual recommends charging fully before using for the first time, so that's what I'll do. The Elitist S uses micro USB instead of the more current USB-C. It's a bit of a shame, but it comes with what seems to be a well-made cable, so I can't be too disappointed. The charging port is seated deep inside this cavity. The included cable fits it just fine, as does one of my Xbox One charging cables, but I could easily imagine some existing cables not fitting, so be aware. It takes up to 2.5 hours to fully charge, and my testing period wasn't long enough to need to recharge it. I've been using this controller exclusively for around a week, and I'm excited to share everything I've learned. And I'm going to start with the primary reason you'd buy one to use with the Nintendo Switch. Pairing is as simple as pressing the pair button for about 3 seconds while on the Kinect controller screen. I needed to use another controller to get to the screen while in docked mode, but after pairing, I can use the Elitist S to sleep or wake the Switch without issue. Interestingly, the Switch identifies this as a regular Pro controller, one time referring to it as blue for some reason. I'm not sure what that could mean. To test the performance of the controller, I used it to play several games I'm already familiar with. From a hand feel perspective, I don't have any complaints. The ridges of the analog stick feel different, sure, but it isn't materially better or worse. I may prefer the Pro, but any difference in feel is really nitpicky. They are so similar. As for performance, in every case, the Elitist S was on par with what I expect from the Pro controller. In normal gameplay, I didn't observe any compromises, but I didn't find any advantages either. A reminder, I'm a gamer of average skill, and a difference in controller doesn't really change that. To test the gyro, I used the Super Mario Galaxy Switch port, and it again acts just as I expect. I had no issues with abnormal drifting or loss of precision. To reiterate, using it was nearly indistinguishable from using a Pro controller. I was particularly interested in giving the D-pad a thorough testing. Nintendo's D-pad is one of the few points of weakness on their Pro controller, as it's too easy to get false inputs from directions other than what I'm pressing. This is such a known issue that they even patched Tetris 99 with an extra control option to address it. I'm going to turn this option off and test both Tetris 99 and another game that gives me similar trouble, Pac-Man 99, to see if the Elitist can outperform the Pro. After many rounds of both games, I can confidently report that while the Elitist D-pad serves its purpose very well, I still had occasions of false inputs. This was a rarity, but it still happened. So again, this is another instance of the Elitist S being relatively on par with the official first-party controller, which, considering how enthusiastically some people love the Pro controller, is actually pretty high praise. As with other third-party Switch controllers, this controller has a couple of compromises you should know about. This controller doesn't work with the Switch's Find My Controller feature. Also, it doesn't have an NFC reader, so it is not compatible with Amiibo. But there's also good news. There are some features that the Elitist has that the Pro does not, and they're all enabled by the function button. It's near the right analog stick, but out of the way, and it unlocks a host of additional features. Pressing function and right will cycle through the different levels of rumble intensity. Pressing function and a button will enable turbo for that button. Pressing function plus left will cycle through the turbo button speeds. You can use the function button to assign single buttons or even record macros to each of the rear paddles. I tested these features and they work, but I don't play many games on the Switch where I need this extra function. Perhaps you do, and it's always nice to have an option. Speaking of options, this controller is usable on more than just the Switch. I can pair this with my Android phone and play many of my mobile games with an actual controller. Pairing to my phone was very easy, but for Android, hold the A button while holding the pair button to enable Android mode. With the controller paired, I was able to play a few of my phone's games much more easily than with the touchscreen. I was also able to effortlessly play streaming games from the cloud gaming beta with Xbox Game Pass Ultimate. I ran into a small problem when I paired it to my tablet. There was a little bit of controller lag that wasn't there on my phone. The delay was slight, maybe less than a quarter second, not perceptible in many games, but in a twitchy game like Sonic 2, I eventually noticed it, even though it doesn't render the game unplayable. My tablet is much older than my phone and running an older version of Android, so could that be the cause? But an Xbox One controller showed no perceptible lag, yet the Elitist did every time, even after updating its firmware. But again, only with this tablet. On my phone it was perfect, so it's hard to draw a conclusion, so just be aware. Lastly, I'll try it on PC. One small thing I haven't mentioned yet is that since the button naming that Nintendo uses is backwards from the typical PC/Microsoft standard, they printed a small indicator on the face for when you use it on other systems. It isn't a big deal, but it's a nice attention to detail. I don't play many games on PC, but I have a few things I'd like to try out. My computer doesn't have Bluetooth, so instead I'll test a 2.4 GHz wireless dongle. This wireless mode isn't as optimal as actual Bluetooth or wired, but it worked fine on my system. The controller paired easily and worked perfectly with the games I tried it with, whether local Steam games or streamed games on Amazon Luna and Google Stadia, all including Rumble support. A wired connection to PC should guarantee no input lag, and may be the preferable option in some cases. And only by playing wired, or I presume with Bluetooth, I was allowed to control my Xbox One streamed to my desktop, which is a system this controller does not natively support. It's a perfectly serviceable PC controller, even though it lacks a few amenities. For instance, there's no headset support, and the home button activates the local Xbox game bar instead of the Luna or Stadia service options, for instance. The Elitist S is also compatible with iOS, but I don't have any Apple devices to test it with. It's great that it has this extra functionality and that the setup for each is so easy, but what it controls best is the primary device it was designed to be used for, the Nintendo Switch. So here's my final summary. Because the Switch is so popular, there are a lot of unlicensed controllers at various price and quality points you could consider. But if you're looking for something that comes pretty darn close to the official controller, and has a few bonus features, and that can be used with other devices, all while saving a few dollars, BigBig One's Elitist S is certainly worth your consideration. If you want to know more, there are purchase links below. And there's more from BigBig One. Check out my overview of their R100 wireless adapter and see how it can benefit your gaming. Thank you for checking out this overview. I don't do a lot of product videos, but I find them a welcome challenge, and I hope I've been sufficiently informative. You can see some of the others I've done in the playlist on your screen. Thanks again, and take care.